Hey everybody, welcome back to day 2 of my week off. Like I said yesterday, I'm trying to post a video every day just to show the progress I'm making in the hangar. Some days it's really not a whole lot of progress. For example, today I got up at about 6:30 and I spent about 3 or 4 hours working on my Christmas railroad. I may have shown you a video or posted a picture last year, but most years I set up a big Christmas train display. And what you're seeing right here is last year's display. This is a 6 by 12 foot layout. This year it grew a few feet to it's 8 by 14. But I set it up a little bit early because just like the airplane, I don't work on it every day, so it takes a while to set up. And I like to have it set up by Thanksgiving because that's usually when a lot of my family and friends come up to Michigan to celebrate Thanksgiving. So it's nice to have it done by then, because usually I go back to Pennsylvania for Christmas, so nobody sees it actually at Christmas time. So I need to start it a little bit early to get it done by Thanksgiving. So I took a good chunk of my day this morning and was working on that. I'll show you this year's layout when it's all done. So today in the hangar, I'm not really doing a whole lot on the Super Duty. What I will do on this airplane today is continue to remove some of the overspray from the rattle can primer. I want to remove that from areas like the top of the fuselage here and the bottom sides of the fuselage. This is just cheap rattle can primer that I use for the interior or mating surfaces, and I want to remove that so I can scuff up the aluminum and then prime it with a good epoxy primer before I paint the fuselage. So I'll work on that today with the Super Duty, but most of today I will spend working on the pits. The other issue we found is with this aluminum structure here. This goes on the bottom of the throttle body, I guess you'd call it. This is the front right here. That's what holds the air filter. And then what we found cracked was this here. You can see that. This is, all this is a little mount for the throttle cable that comes up through here. So I'm gonna take this off. I'm gonna take these rivets out, take this piece off, and just design something different there to hold the throttle cable. There's just 4 pulled rivets in here, so I can tap out the centers and drill the rivets out. Here's what I've done so far with this. Obviously you can see I removed that bracket from there. This is the bracket that went on there. And this is the bracket that holds the throttle. So there's 2 bolts that go through here, and then the throttle cable goes through that hole. And the only purpose of this was to raise this up off the big bracket here. But when I put this in the airplane like this, it doesn't look like it really needs to be raised up, or when I just kind of hold it up to the airplane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of loosely bolt this back on and then put the throttle cable in here and just kind of see if it does need to come up. If it does, I'll just put a spacer between here and here. But I might be able to just bolt it on to here, just like I have, you know, temporarily right here. So I'll go put it back in the airplane and see if this works. Well, check this out. It's back in the airplane, and here's how it would sit right in there. If I can kind of pop it in, kind of right like that, if I didn't put the spacer in there. But then you can see kind of the angle right here. So by raising it up kind of about here like that, you can see it keeps this a lot straighter. So it actually does need a spacer in there. So I just have this temporarily bolted in with just 2 bolts out of 4. So I'll take this back off and we will put a spacer in between there. Well, here's my solution here. I've used a square piece of aluminum for a spacer. And I think this will work much better than just the flimsy one that was on there. I think this would be, I don't think this would crack at all. And if I made another one just like the other one, I think eventually it would crack again. So I will put this back on and see how it works. Well, there we go. This pretty much puts it in the exact position that it was before. I think with a stiffer spacer, I think this is gonna work nice. This piece is now ready to put back on the airplane and build all of that back up. But before I do that, I want to talk to the mechanic tomorrow because I'm guessing this gasket here probably needs replaced or should be replaced. So the mechanic will be out here tomorrow finishing some things up. I'll ask about this and maybe try to get another one of those ordered. You know, one of the other things I want to do on here is, since I was doing an oil change, obviously I drained the oil out, but this is where the oil drains out. You remove this cap here, and this cap leaks, and it's making a mess of the bottom of the airplane. And as you can see, it's also dripping all over the hangar floor every time I pull the airplane in here. So they make a like a crush washer sort of thing that's meant to go in there that can keep that from leaking. And if you remember on a video a while ago, I actually had to put one in an oil line on my cruiser. So I don't remember what it's called. There's a weird name for it, but I'm going to order that from Spruce and then take this back off, put that little crush washer thing in there, and then put it back on, and hopefully that'll stop it from leaking. Then once that's done, I can fill it with oil. Now you might notice there is no exhaust on this side of the airplane, and that's because it's in my hand. We've removed it because about 3/4 of the way around this flange, the weld is cracked. So I have to take this somewhere and get welded. In fact, if I hold this up to the window, you can actually, if you look inside the exhaust, you can see light coming in there. That one's cracked all the way through. So this has to get welded, and the next step is to find a place locally that can weld. So once we get this welded, we'll put the exhaust back on the airplane. We can put that little air box on the bottom back together. The mechanic right now has all the spark plugs. He's cleaning them and gapping them, so those are removed right now. And then I basically just have to rebuild the brakes. I took everything apart just to check them, and I took the wheels off and I re-greased the bearings, so I just have to build that back up. I might have mentioned in a previous video, the whole mess with this pit started with an oil change. All I wanted to do was take the cowling off to change the oil because it was due for an oil change. And once I did that, I decided to take the wheel pants off and just kind of look things over. Then I decided to take the wheels off and re-grease or repack the bearings. Then I decided to take the brakes off. But one of the main things that I really wanted to do ever since this airplane, or ever since I bought this airplane, was there's a panel in the bottom of the airplane where that big space is. It's not installed right now, and I'll take you over to the workbench and show you. But the panel was just really, really dirty and nasty. And like I said, ever since I got the airplane, I've wanted to remove that panel and clean it. And since I had the rest of the airplane apart, I figured this was a great time to remove the panel, which I have done. I've taken it off and I've cleaned it. I've rebuilt it with all new hardware, and I'll kind of put some pictures up on the screen of just how dirty and nasty this was. It was just, it's never been cleaned, I don't think, or probably even removed since the airplane was new. One of the things I did want to do is replace this window because it does have a crack in it, but I need to order some probably Lexan and then figure out how to bend it. And I just really didn't want to mess with that right now because I want to get this airplane back in the air. So I did put in the old window, but I've cleaned everything up the best I can. Like I said, it's all new hardware on here. The inside cleaned up, didn't clean up perfectly, but that's as clean as I can get it. And then the outside did clean up pretty nice. So once the actual inspection of everything on the bottom of the airplane is done by the mechanic, I can put this panel back on and button it up. So obviously my goal for this airplane is to continually make it nicer and nicer. And one of the other things I've been working on is I kind of rebuilt this aileron pushrod area under the wing. Here's what that area looked like originally on the bottom of the wing. You can see how dirty and nasty everything is. It's just years and years of grime and grease and crud or whatever that is. So I took it all apart. First thing I did was I re-primed and painted that push rod just to make it look nice. And I cleaned up the ball ends, just shined them up a little bit, cleaned them the best I could. And then I took this clear Lexan cover and I wanted to make a new one out of aluminum. I don't really need it clear because there's only 2 nuts in there. They both have cotter pins, so it's not something I need to inspect every pre-flight. So I traced that clear one onto aluminum. I made a new cover, primed it, painted it red, and put it back together. And I think you would agree that it looks much nicer now. Well, it may not seem like I got much done today in the hangar, And I really didn't actually, but the stuff I'm doing just takes some time and is monotonous and boring. But that's all I can do today. The only other thing I could do today is start building the brakes on the pits, but I just have too many other things to do today. Today is our annual association meeting for the air park. I just have to go grocery shopping. I need to get to the gym yet. I need to buy a new pair of shoes for work. So I just have some running around and other stupid stuff to do that takes me out of the hangar. So that is it for today. That's what I got accomplished today. Check back again tomorrow, because tomorrow I am going to lay up the fiberglass and make the bottom windshield fairing on the Super Duty.